By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of the key differences between Claude Cowork and OpenAI's Codex. We'll talk about which one is easier to use, how well they work with third-party tools and scheduled tasks, and which one is best for things like design work and multitasking. Since these are two of the best AI agents currently available for regular people who want help with knowledge work, you might think that they're very similar. But I actually found some key differences between the two of them that you'll definitely want to know about so you can decide which one is best for you. Let's first talk about how you access both of these different tools. The primary way for both of them is you need to download an app onto your computer. We'll talk about mobile later, but it does have to start on your computer. Inside the Claude app, you'll notice there are three different tabs. The first one is Chat. This is the regular Claude chat. Then we have Cowork. This is for knowledge work, things like creating files. And then we have Code. This is obviously for coding. The way Codex does this is a little bit different. Inside the Codex app, there aren't any tabs. This is all in one. So if you have any chats, or you want to do Cowork style work, or you want to code, you can do all of that from in here without having to switch between tabs. The one thing you can set up is if you click on settings and come into settings, right here at the top under work mode, you can choose which one you do more. If you're going to use Codex more for coding, select that. But if you're going to do it for more everyday work, select that one. You can still code, but it's going to be more geared toward that everyday work. But anyway, returning back to the app, what I like about Codex is that it's so minimal and sleek and clean. Not having to switch between all of them makes it so that it's not so cluttered up here. On the other hand, what's nice about Claude is that you know exactly what you're getting when you select one of these tabs. If you're primarily or only going to use this for Cowork style tasks, then you're just going to leave it on this the entire time. So I can't say that one is necessarily better than the other. It's really your personal preference. So for this category, I'm going to give it a tie. And by the way, I'm going to be talking about a lot in this video because I want you to have a full understanding of both these tools before you decide which one is best for you. So please use the timestamps down below if you do want to skip around. Next, I want to talk about the actual chat itself and how you use this to create things. Both tools are similar in that you choose local files and folders on your computer to interact with, but there are some key differences. So here inside of Cowork, when you select this dropdown, you can select any folder on your computer. So I can click where it says choose a different folder. Let's say I want to select my desktop. I can select that and click on open. And now Claude will be able to access all the files on my desktop. What's awesome about it is that you can select multiple folders. So I have, for instance, this folder selected that says FrankBot, and I have this folder, which is desktop. Codex works similarly. So coming into Codex, you can see right here, this is where you select the folder you want to work inside of. So if I click on Add New Project, I can again select my desktop and click on Open, and now I'm working inside of my desktop. However, unlike Cowork, you can't select multiple folders. You're forced to work inside of one folder at a time. The other thing that Codex does is anytime you select a new folder on your computer, it automatically turns it into a project. You can see that over here on the left. After I selected the desktop folder, it automatically created a project called desktop. And this project matches or is synced up and linked up with the folder, the desktop folder. There are two problems with this. First, you may not want this to happen automatically. And the second problem is that you can only create one project per folder. So if I select desktop again and start a chat in here, it will automatically get added to the desktop project. But if I wanted to maybe start a new type of task inside of desktop, like maybe I'm doing two different types of tasks inside of desktop, well, I can't have two different projects for that. I can only have one project per folder. In Claude Cowork, on the other hand, you can do that. So I can click on the left here where it says projects, click on new project, and I'll use an existing folder. I'll select my desktop folder, click on open, and I'll call this one desktop 1. Maybe I'll use that for one type of task. But then if I have a different type of task that I also want to do inside my desktop folder, well, I can come over to projects, click on new project, select my desktop again, and I'll call this one desktop 2. And then coming back to projects, you see desktop 1 and you see desktop too. And you can pin any of these projects so that they appear over here on the left. Once you open them up, you'll see not only all the chats that you started from within this project, but also all the outputs that were created inside that project, like the different Word documents or Markdown files or PowerPoints, for instance. The downside to this, though, is that you have to click on the project name in order to see the recent chats from within that you started from within that project. With Codex, on the other hand, they're all right here. It's a lot faster to get to them. So if I want to return back to any of the chats I started inside the desktop project, it's right here. I can easily get to it. So personally, I don't think either of these tools gets this right. I really like the layout that Codex has, but it's missing a lot of the features that Claude Cowork has, like the ability to create multiple projects from the same folder. So once again, I'm going to call this one a tie, just because neither of them really nails it. Let's now look at connectors versus plugins. These are how both these tools talk to third-party tools such as Gmail. So for Claude, you can find those over on the left by clicking on Customize and then click on Connectors. Claude connects up with a lot of third-party tools. You can see all of them right here. It's quite a long list. And if for some reason the tool you're looking for isn't in here, you can always connect it up with Zapier, which connects with thousands of third-party tools. What I really like about Claude is that once you add a connector, you can really dial in the permissions. So here I'm inside the Gmail connector, and for all the read-only tools, which include things like reading or finding specific email threads, or looking at all the labels I've created, or searching email threads, I've given Claude full access to do that. It never has to ask my permission to do those tasks. But when it comes to drafting emails, it's only allowed to do that if it first asks for my approval. If I want to give it full permission, I can, or I could even block it. So you can really dial in the permissions inside of Claude. In Codex, they don't call them connectors, they call them plugins. And you can find those here on the left where it says plugins, and this is all of them. You see, it's a lot, but it's not as many as Claude. And I don't think they have Zapier. Let me check. No, so they don't have Zapier. So you're really limited in these few that they have. But the ones they have do work well. But unfortunately, you can't dial in the permissions like you can with Claude. And I do hope they add this to Codex soon because I think it is very important. Now, I've used a lot of third-party tools with both Codex and with Claude Cowork, and I think both of them work really well. But some tools seem to work better with one or the other. Gmail is a good example of that. I used to have Claude Cowork reply or draft emails for me for everything in my inbox every morning, and used to do a great job at that. But a few weeks ago, it sort of broke where it wasn't able to draft replies in the actual thread. It would just create a new separate email. And so it's kind of sloppy looking. Where Codex doesn't have that issue. When it drafts a reply, it's actually in the thread. So it looks like it's an actual reply. So now I'm using Codex for my email triage. I'm hoping that that gets fixed for Claude because, like I said, it used to work. And I'm still going to give the win to Claude Cowork just because they have so many more connectors and these permissions are so important and we don't have that in Codex. Next, let's compare scheduled tasks with automations. These both essentially do the same thing. So inside of Claude, I can tell it every morning at 5 a.m., tell me the weather and a fun fact about this date in history. It'll then ask me if I want to set that up as a scheduled task. And then that's set up. I can see all my scheduled tasks by clicking on the left here where it says scheduled. So where's the one we just set up? Right here. So let's go ahead and run it. And as soon as you run a scheduled task for the first time, you'll see it appear here on the left under scheduled. Now for each scheduled task, you will only see one entry for it, so to speak, here under scheduled. So if I click on this, it will show me the most recent run of this task. If I want to see the older ones, I can find those over here on the right. So this is the one that's currently running, and this was the one that ran just a few minutes ago. Codex works very similarly, but it looks a lot different. So if I tell it to schedule a task for me, it will set up what's called an automation, and I can find all of those here inside the automations section. Now, this automation is tied with the chat that was used to set up the automation. So if I were to run this automation, You'll notice it doesn't start a new chat. It actually runs inside the task that was used to create this automation. So you can see that happening right here. And then if I were to run it again, like the next day, if it happens on schedule, that one will also appear inside the same chat. So it's not separated out. Personally, I think the way that Cowork has set this up makes a lot more sense than the way Codex does it. As for performance, I've had some issues with Codex automations. Even though I have it running 24/7 on a headless Mac Mini, the automations don't always run. Whereas Cowork reliably always runs every scheduled task for me. So for this category, Cowork is the winner. I think one of the smartest ways to use either Claude Cowork or Codex is by setting it up on a dedicated device that's running 24/7 so that your automations or scheduled tasks are actually automated. I have mine set up on a headless Mac Mini, which means that there's no monitor attached to it. When I do need to log into that Mini to set something up, I can either use a remote desktop tool or I plug these into them. These are the VitureBeast AR glasses. Viture is the sponsor of today's video, so I want to take a moment to tell you about these. These plug directly into your computer, your phone, or your iPad, and they create a massive crystal clear display right in front of your face. I not only use these with my Mac Mini, but I also use them a lot while traveling. I just bought a truck camper, and every weekend I've been going out into the woods to do some fishing or hiking. And when I come back to my camper, I can turn on Starlink, plug these into my computer, and get some work done with its massive screen. The screen even stays locked in place, so it really feels like I'm looking at an actual monitor. I find these particularly incredible when I'm vibe coding because I can activate widescreen mode and get this massive floating display right in my tiny camper. Then when it's time to relax, I can watch a movie on them, and it's like having my own personal movie theater right on my face. They have built-in Harman speakers, which sound incredible. So if you want to pick up your own pair, you can do that at the link in the description down below. Make sure to use the code Paul for an additional 10% off. And thank you, Viture, for sponsoring this video. All right, now let's talk about some of the things you can actually create with Cowork and Codex. First, file creation. And what you're going to find is that both of them do a really good job at creating things like PDFs, Excel documents, Word documents. I think you're going to be pretty happy with either of them because they both do a great job. So this is a PowerPoint by Claude Cowork, and this is one that was created by Codex. I'll say overall, I tend to like the way that Cowork makes them just a little bit better. We'll talk more about design later, but I tend to prefer the designs made by Claude Cowork. But really, I mean, look at the one by Codex. It's also really excellent. Now, what's different is how you can interact with the files that are created. See, if I close this out, you'll notice that inside of Codex, you can open up any file that was created right here in this side panel. And you can make this bigger and smaller, or you can click on this expand button and then zoom in. So you really get a large view of the file that was created. And then of course I can click through this. Down here at the bottom is a chat. So as I'm going through this, if there's any changes I want to make, I can start to type out those changes here. And then I see something I want to change on this slide. I can tell it to make changes on that slide. And I don't have to, have both of these things open side by side, like the chat here and this open. Now, Cowork doesn't have the ability to do that. Inside of here, you can only make this so large, and that's it. That's all that you can do with it, which is fine for this. But if we check out this Excel document that I had it create for us, this is super cramped and I cannot see the whole thing. The only way for me to be able to see all this would be for me to actually open it up outside of the Claude app. But inside of Codex, I can open it up here, again, full screen it, and I get a lot more, especially if I close this side panel. I can see pretty much the whole thing. Oh, and there I zoomed out a little bit too much. Yeah, so I can totally zoom in and out as much as I want, where again, with this one, let's be fair, I'll close this, and I can't zoom in and out with this. Well, I guess I can do it if I zoom out the entire app. So it's just not as easy to use as Codex. The other nice thing about Codex is that every artifact that you create inside the chat, when you have it full screen like this, you can see it up here. So I can return back to the PowerPoint that I've created, and then I can return back to the Excel document. You can't do that when you have this open inside of Claude. Now, if I close it, you can see all those artifacts on the right here. I got to find them all. Yeah, right here. So we have the Excel file, and then I can close that out. And then I create a markdown file in here. So we also see the markdown file. It's just not as easy to navigate as Codex is. The other nice thing about Codex is that if I select any of this text, I can click add to chat. So let's say it put together this report for me and I don't like this part of it. I can just highlight this, click add to chat, and say, I don't like this section, make these following changes. Where Cowork doesn't have that, there's no add to chat. So as for the tools themselves, I think Codex is the winner here. It's just a lot easier to use. But you also have to consider the models powering these tools. And if you like the way that Opus writes better than the way GPT 5.5 writes, then that's something you have to consider. Personally, I think that Anthropic's models are the best when it comes to writing, but OpenAI's models have come really far and they've really closed that gap. It's very close now. So for the tool, I'll give the win to Codex, but for the model, I'm going to give a slight edge to Claude Cowork. Next, I want to talk about design. We already covered this a little bit when we created our PowerPoint presentation. And again, just to recap that, I think that Claude was a little bit better with that, but let's do some other use cases. So the first one I'll talk about is an easy comparison, image generation. So if I ask Claude to create an image for me, it of course can't do that. Claude doesn't have image generation built in. There are ways you can do this with third-party connectors, but nothing built in. Meanwhile, Codex uses GPT Images 2.0, which is one of the best image generation models in the world, and it is built into Codex. And you see, it is quite good. So obviously the winner here is Codex. Both of them can also be used to generate web pages and landing pages. Here's one that I made with Codex. And once again, this looks fantastic. And so does the one that was made by Claude Cowork. I think this one also looks really nice. The difference, yet again, is that with Codex, you can full screen this and you can use annotation where you can select things that you don't like and add a comment and tell it what changes you want to make, where with Cowork, you don't have that ability. Now, so far, all the designs I've shown you have been made directly inside of these apps, but with a Claude subscription, you also get access to something called Claude Design. So this is Claude Design, and you can use this to prototype apps, to create slide decks, and to create motion graphics. It's kind of annoying that you have to switch to a different tool to do this. So I almost never make slide decks inside of Claude Design. I'll just use the Claude Cowork desktop app. But I do use this for motion graphics because they're really easy to make inside of Claude Design. For instance, that video you saw at the beginning of this video, I made that with Claude Design. I find it's so easy to make motion graphics. I can usually make these in 1 or 2 shots directly inside of Claude Design. Codex doesn't have something like this built in, but you can install a plugin called Remotion. This is it right here. And Remotion creates motion graphics. However, I find it harder to use than Claude Design. For instance, this is a Remotion project inside of Codex. And the first problem I have is that this just will not work on my MacBook. It only works on my Mac Mini. I think it has something to do with network permissions or something. But anyway, here it is inside my Mac Mini. And I just find it takes a really long time to get a usable output from it. Whereas what I create with Claude Cowork or Claude Design, I can make much faster and I think looks a lot better. Don't get me wrong, I see plenty of motion graphics that are created by Remotion that look incredible, but it just takes a lot more time to get there. So for design, just to kind of recap this, things like PowerPoints and websites, I think it's about equal. Slight edge to Codex because it's easier to edit. Images, that goes to Codex, obviously. And for motion graphics, I'll give the win to Claude Design. Both tools also have browser use that work through a Chrome extension that you install. And then you can tell either tool to do something on your browser and it'll actually open up Chrome and navigate around for you. I found that the one for Claude Cowork works a lot faster than the one that Codex has, But Codex also has a built-in browser. So if you don't want it to have access to your browser, you just need something generically done that doesn't need to be logged in, it can do that in that sandboxed environment. Oh, and both of them also have computer use, so they can actually control your computer and other apps on your computer. It works pretty well for both of them. Let's just bang through like 5 or 6 quick comparisons before we get to the pricing. So first of all, skills. Skills work exactly the same way in both of them. There's no winner there. It works great for both of them. And if you don't know what skills are, they're basically repeatable workflows. So you can save these so you never have to type in the same prompt over and over again. Something that is different though is that Cowork has something called dispatch. This allows you to continue a conversation from your phone. So as long as your computer is on and Cowork is running, you can connect up the Claude app on your phone to dispatch or through dispatch to Claude Cowork. And so you can have it do stuff for you while you're moving around. The problem with this is that honestly, it doesn't work that well. And I never use it because I just don't think it's good. But Codex doesn't have anything like this yet. So the win here does go to Cowork. Something that Codex does have though, which is quite fun, are pets. So if you type / and type in pet, you can wake up your pet and you'll see it on the bottom right-hand corner. And what's great about this is that if you have a chat that's running, you can go somewhere else, like maybe watch a YouTube video, and you can always check in on your pet on the bottom right-hand corner, and it will let you know what that chat is doing and like how it's progressing. And if it needs you to approve something or if it's finished, it will let you know that as well. It's actually super helpful having that. Codex also has mini windows. So if you come to any chat and right-click it, you can click on Open in Mini Window, and then it'll appear here and you can move this around. So once again, this is really great for multitasking. And then finally, I sort of mentioned this before, but I just feel like Claude Cowork has gotten so cluttered. Over here on the left, there's just too much going on. You have your recent chats where a lot of things live. You have all these different kinds of things you can pin, all these different menu items here, where Codex just feels a lot sleeker and cleaner and is honestly more pleasant to use because of that. So stacking up all those little things, like the little things category, I would give the win to Codex. So let's talk about pricing. With Cowork, you can access it through one of Anthropic's plans. So we have the $17 a month plan. Oh, let's actually switch this to monthly because who pays for the whole year up front? So the $20 a month plan, you can access Claude Cowork, or you can do it with the $100 a month plan or $200 a month plan. And I'll tell you right off the bat, the $20 a month plan is not going to get you very far. It is pretty much worthless. Now, with Codex, on the other hand, you can access that with your ChatGPT plans. As you see here, you do get access to Codex on the free plan, and you probably get a little bit of a bump on the Go plan, but you should probably use the Plus plan if you're going to seriously use Codex at all. And you get quite a lot of usage out of that. This is a plan that I'm currently on. I do hit my limits on it every single day, but only just hit it. And that may probably be because I'm using both this and my Cowork plan. But the amount of use I'm getting out of the Plus plan, I could never get on the $20 Pro Claude Anthropic plan. The ChatGPT plans go a lot further in Codex than the Claude plans go in Claude Cowork. So I am using both, and I'll probably continue to use both to take advantage of as many of those strengths as I can. Fortunately, the system I set up allows me to use 2 different tools within the same system. Basically, what I've done is I've created a folder on my computer for my agent, and inside that folder are subfolders which each contain the different projects. But within each folder is a set of instructions for the agent. So whether I point Codex to it or Claude Cowork, it will know exactly what to do because they both have access to the same set of instructions. Now, if you want to learn how I set up this entire system, I made an entire video about it. You can find that right here. This is one of my most popular videos ever, and it's helped a lot of people get started with building out a system for Claude Cowork, but the same system also applies and works with Codex. If you want to check it out, click on this video right here, and I'll see you over there in 1 second. Otherwise, bye for now, and thanks so much for watching.